even though she had no education, she couldn't read. They had to continue the trial behind closed doors.
Oh.
You know it's not a good sign when a public trial goes private.
Yeah. No cameras in this courtroom. No.
Welcome back to Religious Rejects. I'm Alycia, she, her.
And I am Christine. We are continuing our deep dive into religious rejects from history. And today you have one, and I'm very excited about. I purposely tried not to look up anything so I'd be surprised. And everything that happens is going to be me in the moment going, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be fun.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's start off with this. So imagine you're a teenage girl and you start hearing the voice of God. And you believe that the voice is God and from God.
Okay.
I'm not talking metaphorically. I'm not talking like in a dream or something, like literally hearing voices.
Okay.
Okay. Now imagine that those voices that are from God, but also angels kind of pipe in, from here, now and then kind of, there's angels piping in and telling you to do things.
So there's more than one voice in my head. Okay. Yeah.
They tell you to lead an army.
At 14.
At 14.
Okay.
To speak to kings.
Okay.
To change the course of a nation, to basically save a nation from an invading army.
Yeah, I think I would check myself in somewhere. I don't think I would listen to those voices.
Yeah, yeah. And then imagine that the very institution, the church, that originally taught you about your spiritual beliefs and helped you with your relationship with God, then calls you a heretic and a witch and puts you on trial.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that's
would
crazy.
Be rough.
Be really rough.
Yeah.
And then they condemn you to death and burn you at the stake.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's like really super intense. Of course, anyone who has some knowledge of European history, you probably know that we are talking about Joan of Arc today. Jeanne d'Arc. Jeanne d'Arc.
Is that how we say it?
No.
Jeanne d'Arc.
I'm sure it's not.
That was fun, though.
When I was looking at all this history, I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to pronounce all these French names and places correctly. Yeah. So, just bear with me. So,
okay.
So
well,
yes.
I think as long as you make a face like that every time you say one of the words, we're good.
Jeanne d'Arc.
Yeah, I like that. That'll work.
So there's a lot in this story. There's a lot that Joan of Arc did. And she died at age 19, which is amazing to think the impact that she had. And she was so young. It all happened. All of the stuff that happened that we know her for happened just in a few years. And then she was burned at the stake.
Wow.
And one of the things that so shocked me was that she was so powerful, and they were so worried about her, that they actually burned her and her remains at the stake 3 times to make sure there was nothing of her left that they could just put into a river. And so there wouldn't be a grave or she wouldn't be considered a martyr.
There's no grave of her?
Well, there is
some
now.
Sort of There's got to be a monument or something, right?
There is now. And of course now she's been canonized as a saint by the Catholic Church. That happened later. After that same church condemned her to death and burned her at the stake.
I really
3
wish they'd
times.
make up their mind.
Yeah.
Okay, so how did she start?
So it all starts, she was born in 1412, they think, in a small town, in a small village in Domremy, France.
Wait, do that again?
No.
Did you say do, re, mi?
Dom.
Oh, dom.
There's an M.
Oh.
Domremy, but I don't know.
Okay.
She was born in a time, it was during the 100 Years' War, which was a period of time where England and France were having these
Spats.
Yeah, major spats. England was invading France, and they were taking parts of France over, and then France would fight back and get other parts back. And so it was just like this back and forth that went on for 100 years, about. So it was a very difficult time. And at the time that Joan was born, the English had beaten the French at the Battle of Agincourt, which was very disturbing and distressing to the French people. They had lost a good portion of the northern parts of France that they had historically claimed as France. And there was a disputed king. There was worry that the child of the queen was a bastard and not really her. You know, there was all this intrigue, as there often is.
Yeah.
So there were political disputes happening. There were these military, campaigns that are happening. And the French were very upset because they didn't really have a king that was stepping up and really making a difference. And they kept losing ground to the English.
Yeah.
So an important thing to know about Joan of Arc is she could not read. She was not literate.
Okay.
And she grew up in the Catholic Church. She lived right next door to the church in her little town, her little village. So she would go to Mass every day, or as often as they would have it, I guess, And so she was a very religious young girl, and she grew up as girls would at the time. Around age 13, she started having these visions, or she would hear these voices. So there were 3 voices that she started hearing. One was identified as Michael, the Archangel Michael from God. Then there was Saint Catherine, and then there was Margaret of Antioch. And so there was 1 male and 2 female voices that started coming to her and telling her things.
Did they introduce themselves, or did she just say, this is who it is? Did she give you did she give somebody the actual transcript of what these people said to her, or did they just say, so-and-so called? How did we, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, the way she tells the story, and it's been passed on to us, which,
Right.
Who knows?
Telephone.
Yeah. Exactly. She says that she asked who they were.
Okay, yeah.
And they identified themselves then
That's what I
as
was
these
wondering.
people. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So she starts hearing these things, and they start talking to her. And it becomes clear to her that the mission that she has is to support who's called the Dauphin,
Yeah.
who was this...
Baby king.
The baby king.
Baby king. Yeah.
And she was supposed to help drive the English out of France, to help the French be victorious over England. And so I'm just trying to imagine this young girl, 13, 14, 15 years old, talking to leaders, trying to get them to convince them that this is true. This whole story is just incredible, really. Eventually, after quite some time, she does convince local officials to take her to meet who is Charles VII of France. And they try to play a little game on her because they want to see if she's legit or not. So they hide him. They put him in the crowd of people in the room. There weren't a ton of people in the room, but he was not up on the dais where the king would sit or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And she was able to pick him out of the crowd.
So she's
And so she is seen as legit, that she has spiritual, she has a power of sight or something like that.
Very nice.
Yeah, so she gains his trust. This is the part that is really interesting. So she cuts all her hair off, which would have been even now for women, it's a big deal to cut all your hair off. A lot of women will not cut their hair short. So she cuts all her hair off, and she is given a suit of armor from the king. It's made for her because, of course, she's small. She's,
Do they know what her actual size was? They can't. Do they?
It's all legend.
Because since she was burned 3 times, there's nothing to measure.
No.
They can't measure her. I'm so sorry.
She's burned 3 times. I'm sorry. It's just so funny. It's not funny. We don't know how tall she really was or anything. And there's a lot of debate. A lot of the depictions of Joan of Arc have her with like blonde hair and stuff like that. But there is an account of her from the time that said she had black hair. So not a blonde.
Not a blonde.
Not a blonde. So, but again, you know, there are some things that are like written histories, especially of the trial.
Right.
But then there's other parts that are more legends and things like that that were passed on. So it's hard to get precise information about a lot of her story.
Okay.
So she is given a suit of armor, a coat of armor. It's made especially for her because she's so small in comparison to most men. And she starts wearing men's clothing. And she's told that that's what she's supposed to do. The voices of Michael, Catherine, and Margaret tell her that she should leave women's clothing, stop wearing women's clothes, and dress as a man.
Okay.
This is a very important point because ultimately, after all is said and done, that is why they burned her at the stake, is because she was dressing as a man.
Wow. Wow. And the king actually made her a suit of armor and then punished her or gaslit her, later.
The king is not the one that put her on trial.
Oh, okay.
But
see, I'm jumping ahead.
He
Okay.
did not ransom her when she got kidnapped. Anyway,
Okay.
So
she gets kidnapped?
she gets kidnapped.
Oh my God. Okay.
So she goes to her first battle. You know, the English are just dumbfounded that this young girl
Right.
is leading this kind of ragtag army of, I mean, it was maybe a couple hundred people the first battle, you know?
And it was probably only those that were like willing,
Right.
and the higher ups, I'm sure, were sitting at home with buckets of popcorn watching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The leaders of the military in the region where she was, they were all like, yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah,
They
okay,
were not they were not fans initially.
Yeah, that tracks.
She was so popular though, because there had been a legend saying that there was going to be a young maiden who was going to save France. So there was this legend, and so all the people, the common folk and everything, they were like, oh, this is coming true.
Yeah.
Part of the story is that Merlin, as in from, you know, King Arthur and all
Okay.
that. Yeah, so who knows? Merlin had told this little story that this was a vision that he had, and so then when Joan shows up, the common people are like, oh, this is our savior. She's going to save France from England, you know? So the common people accepted her very quickly.
Yeah.
In comparison to the people in power.
Okay.
Now, I will say another important distinction is that, you know, the king's advisors, the Dauphin's advisors,
Yeah.
Charles VII, they were very concerned about her. And they thought she was kind of goofy, as many people did who were in power. So they had religious leaders, they had priests and things, people who were teaching at a university and things like that. Theologians, they came and interrogated her, and she passed muster. She was okay. They decided she was legit.
Okay.
And so from the beginning of her incredible journey, after she's accepted by Charles VII, she has the stamp of approval from the Roman Catholic authorities, the religious leaders of the king. So she's legit. So she goes off to her first battle. The English are like, who are you? What is, they heard about this. They didn't take her seriously. Anyway, she ends up winning and beating the English, and the English take off, And so, she's learning as she goes too. You can see that she's like not really a military leader to begin with. She doesn't really know what she's doing. But each successive battle, she becomes more confident. She becomes more strategic. I think a lot of it too is like the element of surprise. Like the English just really underestimated her.
Yeah.
And then it gave the French troops such a boost to have someone who was like on their side and really fighting and like supporting them all. Like it just kind of helped them win some of these important battles. And so she kind of made her way around the French countryside and reclaimed some of the French countryside from the French. And of course, her fame only grew
Yes.
through all of this because she was, you know, amazing.
Uh-huh.
And this is the basic piece of it all. Now, there's the big thing, it culminates in what's called the Siege of Orleans. Which is, you know, we have New Orleans here.
Yes.
And this is the Old Orleans.
Okay.
In France.
Got it.
Yeah.
Old Orleans.
Old
Got it.
Orleans.
Orleans.
Orleans. So
Sweet.
they have this big siege and all this stuff. Anyway, they win this decisive battle. The English are just humiliated. And Joan gets a little cocky at this point.
Oh boy. Yeah.
Yeah, and so at this point, she decides she wants to try to take back Paris from the English. So she goes there, and people are like, no, don't do that. It's a different situation. It's a much bigger city. Let's wait. Let's not do it. But she was all like on fire because they'd had this amazing campaign of taking back these cities and towns in the northern part of France back from the English, and so she was excited. However, it didn't go well. There were French, the Burgundians were the Duke of Burgundy.
Okay.
They were on the side, they were allied with the English.
Oh.
Yeah, so there were French who were allied with the English. And so when Joan went to Paris to fight them, there were some issues, there were skirmishes. Anyway, she ends up getting captured.
By
And
the
she's-
Burgundians. The
yes.
Burgundians. Okay. Got it.
So she gets captured, she's kidnapped, and she's taken to a castle and she's put in prison. And she's in prison basically for 4 months. Now, during this time, you know, her fame has only continued to grow. And so all of the common people, just the regular folks, she is a huge hero to them. And so this is a problem for the Burgundians because she's so popular with the other French folks, but the Burgundians are really with the English.
Right.
So it's like this whole intrigue happening. So the Burgundians have to decide, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
And so they offer her as to the Dauphin, the king of, you know, Charles VII. He declines to ransom her.
Oh.
He doesn't pay her ransom.
Yikes.
So the Burgundians, you know, they claim, people say, oh, well, war is so expensive, all this stuff, you know. So, of course, they're going to sell her to the highest bidder. And who's the highest bidder? The English.
Oh,
the
gosh.
English really want Joan
Okay.
because she gave them so much leadership, and she really was a pretty effective military leader.
Right.
They had won several battles with her as
Like the French
leader.
did. So that's
French
why
did,
the
yeah.
English
So the English
are like,
are like, we need to get her out of here.
get the Lucky Charm out.
Yeah, she needs to go. So ultimately, the Burgundians sell her to the English, and the English then start this whole trial. And they gather religious leaders and priests and theologians from all across France, and they start interrogating Joan. So initially, the trial is public. And people can come in and like see them interrogating her and all this, and it goes on for several days.
Was it in Burgundy or was it in England?
No, they actually moved her to, here's another great French name, Rennes.
Okay.
Rouen.
Okay.
Whereas there's a big cathedral there now, even today.
Wow. Okay.
And so they have this big trial. She's on trial. It's a public thing. The problem is that Joan is a very effective defender of herself. She has no one helping her.
Right.
She's
Except the voices in her head.
except the voices in her head.
Right.
I mean, she does have God on her side. You know, if
Yeah.
we believe that if we trust what she says, and she says
Yeah.
these are voices from God, she does have God on her side. So Her initial charges were witchcraft, heresy, cross-dressing, and get this one, claiming direct communication with God.
Okay. I mean, all right.
That was a crime, according to the Roman Catholic Church, in this trial.
Okay. So that brings me to another question then. So is it the Roman Catholic Church trying her?
Yes.
So it's not governments. This is the actual church saying, come here.
On behalf of the English king. Because
We're so Catholic now. Got it.
Yeah, because
Okay.
this was...
Like, I'm England.
This was pre, the Anglican split and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So this was all before Henry VIII made his own church. So she was in the custody of the English on trial through the Roman Catholic Church.
Wow.
Yeah. And they had, this whole slew of people interrogating her and all this stuff. And the problem was that she was so convincing. She was a very effective witness for herself, even though she had no education, she couldn't read. So they had to then continue the trial behind closed doors.
Oh.
It's not a good sign when a public trial goes private.
Yeah. No cameras in this courtroom.
No, exactly.
Okay,
No
got
cameras
it.
here.
Yeah.
The priests were realizing that this wasn't going well for them.
Wow.
I know. So they keep interrogating her. They keep interrogating her, all this stuff. I mean, it goes on for a while. All of the charges ended up being centered in two issues. One was cross-dressing.
Okay.
That she continued even after being captured and during her whole captivity, she continued to wear male clothing and dress as a man. And then the second one was she was considered a relapsed heretic. Now, this was one of the most serious offenses that someone could be accused of, because if someone who's relapsed, that means that they had seen the error of their ways at one point and then have gone back to the way of the devil. And so she was considered a relapsed heretic. And so that ultimately is what they convicted her of. And then that led to her being burned at the stake.
Wow. And when she was burned at the stake, because I know that gets thrown a lot, especially in the witch trials, but a lot of times they weren't actually burned at the stake. They were strangled and then burned. Was she actually physically alive when they set her on fire?
Yes.
Wow. Yeah. Okay.
And there is some debate about this as well, because they think that there is one story that says that there was green wood used, so it was taking longer for it to actually really catch on fire.
Wow.
So there's one train of thought that thinks she might have died of asphyxiation from the smoke.
I was just going to say there would have been a lot of smoke. Okay.
So I don't know.
And that's why they just kind of kept burning her just over and over to make sure.
I guess so. I think they wanted to make sure that they got everything and that there would be nothing left. So there'd be no bones for veneration or anything like that, because that was a very common thing at the time, where there would be shrines and things like that, because they knew she was very popular with the common folk.
And when she died, was she still very popular? And afterwards?
Yes, she still was.
Wow.
And do you know what was really fascinating is that, so she was burned at the stake on May 30th, 1431. She was only 19 years old. And today, May 30th, is her saint's day, which I think is really, I don't know, that just kind of bugs me, because the same church that burned her wants to recognize her on that same
day. They kills her.
Yeah. Now, the other thing that was really interesting is that they had, not that long, less than a century after her being burned at the stake, they had another trial where they went back and they looked at all the evidence and decided that that original trial was wrong and that she was not, in fact, a relapsed heretic and all this stuff. So she was reclaimed by the church less than a century after they did this to her. I think it was like 45 years or something like that, which I think is so bizarre.
And did they give a reason for it? Like, why did they even, I mean, were they trying to, maybe they were the reformed heretics.
Maybe
and
so.
Maybe they were trying to make amends for their mistakes. Do we know why? Was it a different pope? Was it a more sympathetic pope? Was he a French pope? I mean, what was happening there?
My personal feeling is that she was so popular
Yeah.
that they had to do something
Yeah.
because she had become such a symbol to so many of the French people.
When was she made a saint or sainted? What's the term for that?
It was only 25 years after 25 years after she was burned at the stake. They had a retrial. The church ordered a retrial of her, which I think is bizarre to think about. Someone who's already died, you're putting them on trial again, and what are you going to... that whole thing just sounds so crazy to me. Joan is then declared innocent through this trial. You know, again, I think it's just because she was so popular.
Yeah.
The regular local folks who were on the side of the French, not the English, they were in love with Joan. She meant so much to them. They believed her when she said that, many of them did, that she was hearing voices from God, that those voices were from God. And, you know, and they believed her because she won several battles, you know?
Wow.
And then at a certain point, the king turned on her and everything started falling apart for her at that point. It's such a bizarre story in so many ways, and yet it's also so powerful. I think there's a lot here about the role of women, women taking on power in ways that they're not supposed to or not expected to, getting too big for their britches, as you might say, you know. There's also, you know, people wonder, was Joan a woman? Was she non-binary? Was she intersex?
Right.
Was she transgender? So a lot of people today, you know, who are in the transgender, non-binary, gender non-conforming community, they claim her as someone of their own community. Lesbians will also claim them. There's a lot of stories of Joan sleeping with girls, you know, the women in the houses, because of course she couldn't sleep with the guys, even though she was dressed as a man. She didn't sleep with the guys. There's Vita Sackville West, who was...
Sorry.
Oh, are you a fan?
Yes. But anyway, go ahead.
Vita Sackville West was fascinated by and she wrote a history of Joan of Arc. And so, anyway, so she's one of the people who pointed out these stories of Joan. The stories are that she slept with the women in the house or the girls in the house. Now, of course, as modern folks, we're like, oh, that means that they had sex. It doesn't necessarily mean they had sex necessarily.
Yeah.
They could have. Who knows?
Yeah.
But
And just for those that don't know, Vita herself was a married woman, but was also in a relationship with Virginia Woolf. A
Yes.
very secret kind of
yes.
love affair. So that's why she may be more interested in what was happening with Joan.
Yeah, what Joan was doing at night.
It's delicious. I love that.
Yeah. So there's a lot of layers to this story. Joan was not rejected by the common folk. You know, when they started hearing her stories, and, you know, they believed her, and many people believed her.
Right.
Those in power, when it suited them, when the king didn't have a lot of power, it was expedient for him to accept Joan.
Right.
And allow her, he's like, well, he probably was like, what do I have to lose? If she goes out and we lose these things, you know, it's like,
Right.
What does it mean? What does it matter?
Yeah.
And then she started winning these battles, and her fame grew and renown grew. And she became much beloved by so many of the French peasant folks. However, Joan's power and strength, the growth of her power and strength was ultimately difficult for him.
Yeah.
And so he ultimately turned his back on her when she got kidnapped by his rivals, the Burgundians, the French rivals, who then sold her to the English. And of course, the English are going to do whatever they can to undermine the French cause at this point.
Yeah.
And so,
And they've been humiliated by this teenage girl
yeah,
a few times.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. It's a remarkable story. On the one hand, you know, she kind of ricocheted back and forth because, like, on the one hand, early in her life, when she first went to the king, she was vetted by religious leaders, and they said that she was a legitimate person and that her voices and those things were happening, and that they, you know, agreed that this was real and it was from God. But later,
Now it's not.
now it's not.
And then 25 years after his death,
Right.
we're back to, yes, it was.
So it was like this big flip-flopping thing, and I don't see how you can look at it and not think about the effects of power, of subversion, of her being someone who they don't expect to be a leader, not to be an effective leader, not to be a good military leader, all this stuff, you know. So it's really sad for her because she had such a short life.
Yeah.
And yet it's also like a really profound story of someone being true to who they are. And we talked in a previous episode about Jesus being true to himself and continuing to live out his truth and speak his truth to power. And that's exactly what Joan of Arc did.
And during her time, did she continue to hear the voices even up to her death? I mean, was she still claiming that she was doing God's calling at the point of her death? So she never wavered in that?
She never wavered in that. She did at one point sign a confession under pressure when she was first captured. And she later recanted that confession. And so I think they also used that against her, you know.
Was she being tortured, though?
Well,
you see that a lot in history where people make up stuff if they get tortured.
the interrogation techniques that they used were not what today are recognized under the Geneva Convention. So let's just put it that way. It was not, they were,
humane. Yeah.
They were torture techniques.
Oof.
So yeah, it was terrible.
Thanks for tuning in. Up next, will the rejects keep, rethink, or reject today's topic? Stay with us.
As you think about the story of Joan of Arc, like, what is it that speaks to you about her story? What would you want to keep, rethink, reject from her story?
I think just the fickleness of men. Sorry. It's just crazy to me how this young woman was just used as a pawn for political things. I would also like to point out real quick, especially in this day and age, that the Pope or the Roman Church was very much into politics and deciding, you know, whether or not this person was going to live or die. I mean, granted, based on religious rules, but I just find that interesting, you know, how we are in a time where the Pope can't say you shouldn't go to war and everyone's freaking out because he needs to stay out of politics. And I was like, have you read your history books? I mean, so that's just my little, but I, you know, the fickleness of men, and men and power. And I know that some women in power probably could go back and forth. I know Queen Elizabeth, you know, went back and forth on her cousin Mary, and, you know, which is fine. But, you know, it's just absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Yeah.
And it can be swayed, and it can be manipulated, and it uses people for pawns. So obviously I reject all that. But I also feel like that's something that we need to continue to see if it's happening around us today, so we can call it out.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
This poor little girl.
I know. She was so, you know, I found it really moving her mother spent the rest of her life trying to save Joan's reputation.
Oh,
And to
wow.
prove that she was a legitimate, that the voices and all those things, that those were legitimate and that she was not a heretic. And I found that so moving.
Yeah. I never even thought about the parents. I guess I just assumed she was like an orphan or something. I don't know. But so her parents had to witness all of this, her save France and then be killed by France.
Yep.
Wow.
All of it. There is a prayer that people pray to Joan. And I think that it is a beautiful prayer in the light of all religious rejects everywhere. The cross-dressing folks, the gender non-conforming, the trans, the queer folks, everyone, women who stand up against power, all of those who are standing and speaking truth to power. This is for all of you out there. So this is the prayer. In the face of your enemies, in the face of harassment, ridicule, and doubt, you held firm in your faith. Even in your abandonment, alone and without friends, you held firm in your faith. I pray that I may be as bold in my beliefs as you, St. Joan. I ask that you ride alongside me in my own battles. Help me be mindful that what is worthwhile can be won when I persist. Help me hold firm in my faith. Help me believe in my ability to act well and wisely. Amen. So I just think that's a
great.
beautiful prayer, and that's a standard prayer that people use in the Catholic Church to pray when they pray to St. Joan.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long has that been around? Do we know?
I mean, I guess,
Yeah.
100 years maybe, because she
Wow.
was only canonized in 1920, so I
Can't believe
I don't
that.
know. I know, it's wild, isn't it?
Yes.
So,
Well, that was beautiful.
and I wish we had more firsthand sources
Yeah.
of things at the time, but of course, any that would have survived would have been destroyed by the trial and, anybody trying to prove that she was a relapsed heretic and all that. So,
Yeah. Well, thank you for joining us. We do hope that Joan of Arc encourages you, that you feel her presence. Maybe not listen to all the voices, but then again, if you do listen to the voices, that's good too. We're okay with that. But thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you next time. Bye. As soon as I asked you how tall, I was like, oh yeah, they probably don't know because, anyway, please go on. I'm so excited. I love story time with Alycia.